I'm still a beginner, really. There's so many parts of Blender that I just completely don't know. I literally don't remember the name of that software, unfortunately. It can be a dangerous starting point. Maybe when I'm 100 years old, I'll finally have learned Blender. Like, I didn't do anything. It's not my fault. Pause and rewind and comment underneath.
So welcome everyone to Subsurface Talks, the new podcast about CG, computer-generated imagery, artists' life, and the meaning of life. So today I'm super excited to have Jan van den Hemel. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, that's great.
I'm not going to try your name.
Okay, we can talk about that later. But I'm just calling myself DJ. That's
DJ.
really,
Okay.
yeah, that's really the first letters of my surname and name, and I'm using it as a nickname. So you can all call me DJ. And Jan, some of you might have encountered some of his videos. Probably you might not know the name, but you know the channel that he's running. That's most probably if you're a Blender user, and if you watch YouTube tutorials. And Jan runs Blender Secrets YouTube channel, offering daily tips for doing Blender work, like to improve your workflow. So Jan, can you tell a little bit about yourself, what you do, and is that channel the only thing that you do, or?
Pretty much. Yeah, no, that sums it up actually. I used to be a 3D freelancer and well, I've done all kinds of jobs to be honest. But yeah, recently I'm just doing Blender Secrets. So I'm just really honestly I'm just learning Blender to be honest, like a lot of tutorial makers I think. Just trying to get better at Blender and whenever I find some roadblock, I try to solve it and then turn it into a little 1 minute tutorial. And yeah, and other than that, I'm just maintaining my book. I have the almost 2,000 page PDF. And that's also a lot of work, of course, because a lot of things change in Blender, as you I'm sure know. Shortcuts change, whole workflows change, interfaces. So that's always a lot of work also to maintain that. But yeah, I'm just doing Blender Secrets now.
Yeah, so that's the thing about software that is evolving, and people like always want it to get better. They want it to change, but then when it changes, it's also like an issue and
Yeah.
problem at the same time. Uh, yeah, but I guess it keeps your work relevant all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, at the same time, it's good for me because it means I get to update my book all the time and stays relevant, and there's a reason for people to buy the book because they know they can get the free updates and so on. And I will always have topics for the videos because I can just, even if I have no idea for a topic, I can just go back to the very first one and it will already be out of date, so I can remake that. But at the same time, of course, you're constantly learning, and but I kind of like learning, so it's fine with me.
Yeah, so you can get the perspective of your viewers because you're learning yourself, and then you're sharing this with your audience.
I'm still a beginner, really. Even though I have years of experience, there are so many parts of Blender that I just completely don't know. Like geometry nodes, I just started learning the with the course from Simon Thomas on Blender Cloud.
Yeah,
It's so difficult for me. It's like a completely new
it's like a
thing.
great introduction.
Yeah, it's really good. Mhm.
Yeah, it's a different paradigm of working than just like modeling, hand modeling. It's like you have to
Yeah,
kind of like twist your brain.
yeah. I'm not a math guy, so
Yeah, but I wanted to touch upon this
yeah,
always noob approach because it seems like people are sometimes intimidated by that. Like whether I want to
yeah.
learn Blender, and it's like it seems like a so hard learning curve, and in fact, it's like you never get there. It's always
Yeah.
chasing the rabbit, not catching it, right?
Yeah, you'll never get to the end. Maybe when I'm 100 years old, I'll finally have learned the Blender. But no, I think it's better not to focus too much on the big picture. It's just a good idea to approach it from like a little project. Like I want to make this. I don't know. I would say a character, but it's even a character is already a lot, right? Just if you want to just model like a piece of furniture or something, I think that's a really good starting point. Like you want to model a chair or shelf or just whatever you find in your room that you think is an interesting shape, and then just try it and that way you learn a lot, and then you can move on to something more difficult. And that's just, yeah, that's the path. You just have to follow what you find interesting, I think, and not look at, I have to learn everything, because you won't. You can't. I think even Ton Roosendaal doesn't know everything. You know?
Yeah,
Probably
exactly.
nobody who works at Blender knows all about Blender either. So
Yeah, it's a community project
yeah,
also. And let me get back to maybe that part that you mentioned, starting a project that's interesting for you. So I wanted to ask you, what was like this initial spark that drove you to learning CG and Blender? Like what was the thing that you wanted to make with it?
yeah,
So you
yeah.
decided to
That's
learn
a
it.
good question. It's almost hard to remember for me, because I guess it was when I was in film school. I was making all kinds of science fiction short films and stuff like that. And of course, yeah, I was just a film student, so I just had to do everything myself. And yeah, I just learned, like, for example, I wanted to make a little robot character, I think, in one of the short films. And probably actually the first thing I ever did was make some kind of time travel portal or something in a short film. But yeah, all of those things you need to do it yourself when you're a student. So I think I just kind of, I never really thought about, like, I want to learn 3D. It was just one of the many things I had to do making a short film. And it was only one of my teachers asked me, like, why don't you focus on that? Because maybe you're good at that. So maybe it's an interesting direction, that I first started consciously thinking, like, oh yeah, I guess I have been doing 3D. I just never really, it was never really a conscious choice. But it was, I think, yeah, like a time travel portal was one of the first projects, and a robot, uh, which is what I'm still trying to make, actually.
Yeah,
Mm.
I guess that's kind of yeah, like a popular way of getting into, like, for me it was like ArcVis. I was like doing
Ah,
modular
yeah,
design, started like using Blender for my projects, like slowly trying to learn. Like uh, I researched for my one of my first renders recently. Someone asked me to show it, and yeah, it was kind of funny, this time travel kind of loophole, uh,
yeah,
going back to where you started, and it's like it was so crappy. So it's all about the journey. You have
of
to like
course.
make
Yeah.
the first step, and then it just takes you. You don't know
Mm,
where it takes you. Right now,
yeah.
it's not Argvis for me anymore. Like not that much, at least.
Mm. I think that's also, it can be a dangerous starting point to just choose, like for example, I tried to make a robot, right? But that's far too difficult for a first project. That's really advanced, because it's a character, it has a hard surface, it has texturing, animation rigging. So I think that can be dangerous, and I do see that often when I read comments on tutorials, that people are coming at it from kind of a strange direction, like they skip a lot of the basic stuff, the foundation, I guess you could call it, and they go straight into something very difficult. Which, I don't know. It can be fun, of course, but it can also be very frustrating, because you'll just get stuck so many times that you give up.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah, the hard learning curve, and you mentioned that, trying to tackle something too difficult, and now it kind of taps to this current, AI controversy, that people are trying to kind of like cut corners and jump straight into creating advanced art, and they're
Yeah.
using like the image generators, the new term that popped out recently. I was listening to one of the podcasts about it, and they came up with the name promptist instead of artist. I found it quite cool. uh,
Yeah. I think on Twitter, I follow a lot of Japanese concept artists, and I think they call it the prompt ninja.
oh yeah.
But I think you can still see it, that there's experience behind it or not, because I do find some AI art interesting. Like, there are some people who make really bizarre images, like uh, almost like alternate dimension versions of movies that you know. And they all kind of have that mid journey look, but it's definitely concept art that I've never seen before. Like, it may be trained on a lot of stuff, but it's really not anybody's recognizable style. But when you go to those artists' ArtStation profile, they have a lot of work that they've made themselves, so they are very good already without the AI. And I think in their hands, it's a very powerful tool. And if it's somebody who's just a prompt artist, you can kind of tell it's just Mid-Journey making something, and they're taking credit for it. But I was excited actually about Mid-Journey when it first came out, and I thought maybe it's a good tool for making textures, for example, because I'm always trying to find really interesting textures with photography. I just bring my camera everywhere, but sometimes it's difficult to find something, and I thought maybe I can use it for that, but it was so difficult to get what I wanted. Just Midjourney just wants to make a specific kind of image, I feel,
Yeah, I
and so
think
I just abandoned it at that point.
that's like this is a topic for probably for a whole episode, but I just wanted
Sure.
to touch upon a few things about this because it's like one of the things that people think that this is a revolutionary tool because it will cut corners and make you
Mm,
know a, be allow being creative at a just a click of a button. And
mm,
really, it's I think it's kind of like overhyped a little bit because
sure.
it is powerful, definitely for creating some specific things about art, but the creative part of it really lies in the hands of someone that's using it, as you mentioned. It's kind
Yeah.
of still it's
Yeah.
artificial intelligence is like it's kind of like a little bit like overhyped word for what it is really.
Yeah, and it's almost like if you just type a prompt into Google image search, you will also get a lot of images. But you're not going to say, "Hey, I made those images." It's just Google giving you, also by the way, using some kind of machine learning, what it thinks you want to see. And I feel like if you're using Midjourney just with a prompt, it's kind of like Google image search. It mixes the results a bit.
Yeah,
I
plus
think it's more like that.
there's the whole controversy about the things that the models were trained on, like
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah,
and the copyright issues with that. And I'm pretty curious how it will really roll out because some lawsuits are popping up
yeah,
in different countries. And it's interesting because it's kind of like a technological revolution, and it's also like an information revolution. It's like internet opened up the whole new space of things that are not so easy to judge what is right and what is wrong. What's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I wonder if the way people feel about it is related to their age or something. I don't know. Like if I ask my nieces who are like their kids, if I ask them about it, and they like to draw and they want to be in concept art or fashion, and if I ask them about AI, like aren't you worried that you're going to lose your job? They really have no idea what I'm talking about. For them, it's just something fun, but it's not some big deal. So they don't really care that much about it as I think somebody like you or me who are already working for a long time in this industry. I think we see it more as a threat, but maybe we shouldn't really worry about it that much. I don't know. On the other hand, I do see people on Twitter who are like artists who have built up their brand, their unique style for their whole life, and then some guy just feeds it into a machine learning algorithm and can just make that with one click. What costs them maybe 4 hours to make. Of course, that's heartbreaking. That's terrible. So, yeah, that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, but let's hope that you know it will turn out for something good in the end. Like I'm thinking,
But
like it reminds me a little bit of the Industrial Revolution
mhm,
as it
yeah,
was. Like it was shifting a lot of jobs and stuff, but there was also like for the art at least photography didn't kill art. All
no,
the inventions that were kind of viewed as a threat to artists like hand drawing artists or whatever, it didn't really kill this. And I'm also thinking about the the approach that is sold, like the word art industry or whatever, like industry is kind of like it doesn't fit art very much because it's about production, it's about quantity, not always quality.
mhm,
And I'm thinking that art is like a very human experience. It's at its core.
That's
So
true. Yeah, and I also wonder. I think that process videos will become important, like people showing that they're drawing or painting something, like a time lapse. I think that will become more popular now because that's one way to prove like, well, this is really made by a human being, and people do care about that. I think, and it's just fun to see somebody work.
yeah, and I'm thinking that it's also is the process that it's for the artist and also for the viewer. The whole experience is important, and
Mhm.
you want to get things fast sometimes, and fast is good in some areas, but in some areas, like really taking it slow is better. Like you do want to eat your food fast, right? You want to just eat the burger and be full, or do you want to really enjoy a
Right.
good, well prepared meal? Well, I think you choose the other one.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of it being fast and a shortcut and stuff, I think when I look back at when I started being a freelancer, I had a lot of clients who were like price buyers, right? Like you have value buyers who don't care about the price that much; they want something really good, and you have price buyers who want something from Fiverr. Like if it costs $100 and it's good enough, then that's great. That's what they want. And I think those are the people who those AI technologies are for, really, in a way. I think it will replace something like Fiverr, but it won't replace ArtStation. Or it will replace maybe the $100 video for a company, but it won't replace a 50,000 euro, branding campaign because it's something completely different. And in a way, I almost kind of want to, I kind of prefer to be rid of those kind of clients, you know, because they cause a lot of, um, I wouldn't say trouble, but they're not really good for artists when they're just starting out. And it's when people are starting out with their freelance business, they are quite vulnerable because they're making a lot of mistakes. They don't know how to price things and so on. And those Fiverr clients will take advantage of that. And I think if they can just have their AI and real people can focus on real serious customers, that's kind of a good thing. You know?
Yeah, so let's maybe get back a little bit to the story of Blender Secrets.
Okay.
You mentioned that you were doing the freelance jobs, and right now you're kind of like full time YouTube creator, right? And it
Yes.
kind of pays your bills. So can you tell a
Yeah.
little bit of story about this?
Yeah.
How
It
you
was
came to
just
that realization?
it was very gradual because yeah, I was freelancing and I always tried to use Blender a little bit because I was mostly using After Effects and Illustrator to make. I was just like Chris McFall in your previous podcast. I was doing colostomy bag animations and so on. Literally, one of my biggest clients was Johnson and Johnson, the healthcare company, and I was making a lot of videos about cancer medicine and stuff. And I always had to animate, for example, cells, blood cells, and those kind of things. And wherever possible, I tried to use 3D. And I would just take a lot of notes. Like I would run into some problem. Okay, I would solve it, and I would write it down for myself so I would remember the next time. Because I was working at an hourly rate, and I didn't want to have to search for the tutorial again and watch an hour of somebody explaining how to do this. And eventually, I just thought it would be fun to make little Instagram videos of that. Um, I guess because my wife at the time had an Instagram channel, I thought, that seems like fun. And it was instantly quite well received. So I just kept going, and I made one every day, usually just before midnight, before going to bed. Just they were very short. Like the first video was just 6 seconds long, and it was quite easy to make those. And they were also without voiceover and so on. That saves a lot of time. And I did that for a whole year, just one every day. And I didn't have the book or anything yet at that time. And I started to think, hey, maybe I should make some kind of video course. And my idea was to make an Archviz course, actually. But the problem is I am terrible at architectural visualization, so that just didn't turn out very well, and I give up. Um, and then I thought, well, I'll make a little ebook from the tips that I made in Instagram. So I just wrote them out with illustrations, with screenshots and stuff. And I think it was quite short at the beginning, and it was more expensive than it is now. It was 45 euro for 100 tips, and now it's I think like 800 or 600 or 800 tips. And surprisingly, it sold, but it was like a book per day, something like that. So I couldn't just quit my day job. So I kept doing that for quite a while I was freelancing for a couple of years. And at some point, it just started selling enough that I was able to focus only on that. But it wasn't from one day to the next. It really took years. Um, and yeah, at some point, I just told my clients, like, I'm sorry, I don't really have time anymore. And because I was working with them for a long time, I gave them several months. Like I will gradually build uh, build down my work load, and after 2 months, that will be it. Which was very nice. It's really nice to be able to say no to to clients when you're a freelancer. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just too busy now. So yeah,
Yeah, and
it was nice.
yeah, that's great. I'm just wondering about this, daily upload schedule. It's kind of like some people get into that. I don't know. Probably, I think Beeple was the first very
Right.
popular
Yeah.
artist that kind of like drove this, and for 13 years or something like that before he like
Yeah.
exploded with the NFT explosion.
Right.
But I'm finding that this is like a super hard. Like I tried to making these monthly challenges like in Inktober, stuff like that, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to really push through a month of it. And
It
even
is
this like
hard. Yeah. Yeah. But after a while, you kind of feel like I have to do it because otherwise, just I don't know. You kind of break this chain, which nobody really cares about but you. But uh, yeah, it was okay to, but you just have to make it easy for yourself. Like I said, I didn't have a voiceover. They were very short. It was just like, hey, if you want to select all these faces, just press L, for example. And that's it. That was the whole video.
Mhm.
So and then yeah, gradually it just became more and more ambitious. So now I couldn't make one video per day. It would be very very difficult. I think sometimes
I wanted to ask whether you're still keeping the schedule, and
no,
right now, how is it like? You divide this in chunks, and how's your posting schedule on Blender Secrets nowadays?
well, I do repost a lot of old stuff because it's the Instagram channel, for example, is growing so fast that whenever I post an old video, it's new for a lot of people that are just subscribed. So I make about I don't know 1 to 3 new videos per week, I think, on average. I would love to still make 7 videos per week. It's just impossible. Sometimes it takes a week to research a topic, and sometimes I spend days working on a topic and it just doesn't pan out. Like I'm trying to make a video now about doing flow maps to make a Stranger Things like monster with the vines moving, and I know it's possible because that's how they did it in the show, but I just cannot figure it out how to make it work. So and there are a lot of topics like that that I'm working on them, and maybe suddenly I'll figure out, oh yeah, now I know how to do it. But it's no longer a thing of like when I did the first year of the Blender Secrets, I really did not know on the day what I was going to post that day. I had to figure it out real quick. And now I always have a bunch of videos in the pipeline, and I also work with an editor, Tushar, who's also editing them. So usually now I make actually a slightly longer version of the video, and then I send it to him with a short voiceover, and then he makes it shorter. Or I will just make the book article about it, and then I send that to him with a voiceover, and he records the screen even. But it really depends on the topic, but yeah, it takes many days now to make a short videos are a lot of work actually.
Yeah, it seems like people watching Ian Hubert's lazy tutorials. They're called lazy, but I don't think that's
There's nothing
you can
lazy
be
about it.
lazy. Yeah, to put.
I'm sure it cost him also a lot of time to make those. Although he's very quick. I'm sure he's much faster than me.
Yeah, like I think it's brilliant way. Even the things that he shows, the
Yeah,
brilliant thing about them is really sometimes clever tricks and cutting corners where you can something like
mm,
a sleight of hand of a magician. Like you just need to know how to trick the viewers, and
yeah,
that's all.
yeah. He's worked so long already in Blender. Excuse me, that he's got just this super efficient workflow. I think where he shaved off all the stuff that is not necessary. It's pretty entertaining also to watch. I was or I am on his Patreon, and he does also record long, like 1 hour videos where he's modeling stuff. And usually it's I don't really learn anything from it, but it's just so entertaining to watch him do his thing. It's just like showing like seeing a magician, you know. I try his technique sometimes, but I'm not good at it. Like the modeling from photographs, it's he makes it seem easy, but it's really not that easy.
Yeah, probably if model that 1,000 times, then it becomes
Yeah,
easy.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
uh, yeah, so you've published like a giant amount of videos up till now, and I would like to know what was your most successful video so far.
There's one video about how to make holes in surfaces. It's a slightly longer one. It's probably about 5 or 10 minutes, I think. That is definitely the most popular one. And then there's one about NURBS in Blender, which for some reason is super popular. I don't know. People love
I think I,
NURBS.
I think I know the reason, and it kind
Oh
of
yeah.
ties why the video about holes uh,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
was one of the most, because it
Okay.
seems like your audience is very interested in hard surface modeling, and that's
I hope so.
and I have some experience in CAD before like
Yeah.
alongside Blender. I was learning to use Rhino a little bit,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
like a
Yeah.
totally different approach. Right now, an app
Mm.
was released
Plasticity.
recently,
Yeah.
plasticity, and
Yeah.
it's gaining very much popularity
Yeah.
amongst
That's
artists that
interesting.
are doing mesh modeling because they want to try this CAD approach. It's so much different.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Blender, it's very superficial. Like you can use NURBS a little bit, but
It's
not really.
not a full tool set, not at all.
No. No.
And I think it's not even planned because it's like a
Mm.
totally different approach. It's a different core philosophy about modeling.
Yeah. I guess so. Mm.
It would be like a separate blender
Yeah,
all
but
along.
I guess I mean sculpting is also a very different approach to modeling than polygonal modeling. Uh, and you have also metaballs
Yeah,
and
perhaps Blender.
geonodes.
Yeah, Blender is
It's
a
all
Swiss
different
knife.
ways. Yeah, it would be fun if you could do stuff like plasticity in Blender or like VR modeling. That would also be really fun. Uh,
Yeah, but I guess
in Blender.
that's the blessing and the curse of Blender being everything for everyone, and it's like it's not perfect for for no
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
At the end, you need developers for all of that.
sure.
Uh, so talking about Blender, like what would be the most exciting Blender feature that has been added into Blender, for example, like last year?
Well, for me, I love sculpting, so all the new sculpting features are always the most exciting thing for me. And sometimes they are already there, and the exciting thing for me is just discovering that they were there all along. Like I figured out that you can slice stuff. Like in ZBrush, I used to use ZBrush, and you can slice objects very easily. And I thought it wasn't possible in Blender, but it is apparently, and there are a couple of ways to do it. So I was very happy about that. Of course, that's not a very sexy topic or something. It's not like geonodes or. But for me, those are interesting. And I guess for sculpting, they improved the post brush in a quite interesting way. Thought it was pretty exciting. Like you can mix it with cloud simulation, so you can pose a character with clothing, and the clothing will really deform using cloth sim, that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of things being added to the sculpt mode that I think are very interesting. But of course, geometry node is developing very quickly as well. I think it's just really not on my radar yet. So I don't know about
Yeah,
it.
it's kind of sad that the sculpting development slowed down a little bit after Pablo Navarro leaving
Yeah,
the ship, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah.
He's doing like an interesting project of his own, like this cozy
Mhm.
blanket app for retopology.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but the sculpting things in Blender really took off because of his improvements. I think
for
a lot
sure.
of credit for him.
Yeah.
But I was following it because I'm also interested in sculpting area of Blender a lot, and I'm trying to learn it from I think since a year and a half, like more
Okay.
intensively. And I was also looking online for some things about that and found out a channel. It's called Outgang, and it's run by a character artist that's work for AAA Studios and
Okay.
using ZBrush and right now learning Blender as well. And there was
Mhm.
a video talking about how Blender is better than ZBrush, and it was like, oh my god, that's kind of like a clickbaity
Controversial.
title. Yeah, very clickbaity, but it was really like it caught some nice key points about that there are actually advantages of using Blender over
Absolutely.
ZBrush.
Oh yeah, sure. I have ZBrush. I love ZBrush, but I don't use it that much anymore because it's just so convenient that you can do polygonal modeling and sculpting in the same app. And you can do that actually in ZBrush, but it's just very clunky. ZBrush was actually never meant as a modeling app, even or as a sculpting app. It's just a 2D and a half concept art app. But
Mhm.
it, I would say, yeah, ZBrush. It's just very smooth. Uh, like even 10 years ago, I was sculpting million polygon models in ZBrush on an old crappy laptop, no problem. And now you can also do that in Blender, and it's just because I don't know. I guess Blender has improved, but hardware has improved a lot, right? Memory is now very cheap, so hardware is kind of helping Blender catch up to ZBrush. And ZBrush does have a very bizarre interface that even after more than 10 years, I still am not getting used to it. And
Yeah, that kind of makes Blender and
yeah,
ZBrush, you know, kin because Blender was also famous for having the weirdest UI in this space.
yeah, but it's improved a lot. ZBrush is still the same as 10 years ago, like exactly the same, which is why it's so funny that they are now trying to sell this subscription. Like, why would you subscribe to something that never changes? It's so strange.
That's just because of the whole acquisition model. Because
Yeah,
ZBrush was bought by Maxon, and that's all over the industry.
that's their
Things like that
model. Yeah,
happen,
yeah.
and yeah, Substance Painter, but by Adobe, like all those big companies like swallowing
I
projects,
just
project after project.
I just think it's funny. I keep getting emails from Maxon offering me 50% discount on a ZBrush subscription, even though I've already purchased ZBrush lifetime a lifetime license. So it's just funny that they want me to buy it again. Anyway,
Yeah, maybe they're considering your lifetime over
oh
or
no,
something. I don't know.
yeah.
It's kind of strange.
Mm.
Yeah. So talking about work sculpting, like you are interested in or other things. Like, do you make your own CGI projects, like private passion driven ones that are not related to the tutorials that you're offering to the audience, or are
Mm.
you just like allergic to Blender after hours, so to speak?
No, no. I I think it's very important that you have your own private projects. But I try to make that the source of my tutorials because I think tutorials are always better when they're based on real projects. Because it's then that you encounter interesting new stuff or interesting roadblocks. So if I didn't do any 3D in my spare time, it's not really my spare time, I guess, but if I didn't try to make something, then I would also not be able to make any interesting tutorials, I think. So But it's frustrating, isn't it? With 3D, it's one of those super technical art skills where most of the time you're just trying to make something, but you're just constantly facing all these technical challenges, and you have to learn new things, and you have to solve something that suddenly doesn't work, and it can be frustrating. I find sometimes I just want to make something, but instead I'm searching on Blender Stack Exchange how to
Exactly.
solve
And
something.
do you ever try to automate any tasks that you're doing, like using Python or, as you mentioned, geometry
Yeah,
nodes is one of the ways?
I did recently, but maybe a bit controversial. I used the Chat GPT to make a Python script, um, because I wanted to have in a in a cloud simulation. I wanted to have a whole bunch of empties randomly scattered with hooks on a piece of clothing, so that I could pull on them in a simulation. And so I thought, well, I can probably easily make a Python script in Chat GPT. So I just asked it like, make a script for Blender that does blah blah, and it kind of worked a little bit, but not really. So then I had to start learning Python and copy pasting the parts that I needed. And actually, it turned out to be pretty easy because you can just do something that you wanted to do, and then you see what the code for that is, and you can just copy paste it in a Notepad text document. And so I kind of half got there with ChatGPT, and then the other half I did myself, and that was kind of fun to learn. But that's probably the only thing I've ever automated, other than
And but
some
that's
Photoshop.
that kind of resonates with some of my experience. Like
Uh,
the thing that you mentioned, that you really need your projects to be able to learn something new and to make it
mhm.
kind of relatable, fun, and kind of like grounded in something real. And I found that
Mhm.
exactly like trying to learn Python at one time. Like I really thought
Yeah.
that it would be like a nice tool under my belt, so to speak. And I even bought a course about this, and tried to also doing this course by Sibren on Blender Cloud, and it's a great course.
Mhm.
It's very like I could understand the concepts, but I really lack this one thing with all the courses that I made. Like I have quite a lot of theoretical knowledge about Python and how it should be done, but I really didn't have that incentive to really apply this to anything, any
Yeah.
real task,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that it's kind of stays like a empty skill that's not used, and
Yeah.
it's it's not a real tool for me
And
to
then you
use.
forget the theory again. That's also
Yeah,
the danger.
and very quickly
Yeah.
it evaporates from my memory.
Mm, true.
Yeah, so I really need to think cleverly about trying to implement this in some of my real
Uh-huh.
time tasks and
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to make something. What I want to make with geometry nodes is a kind of base mesh generator for like robot models. So I think that's something that it could be suitable for, because I've seen a lot of people make like spaceship generators and things like that. So I think a robot generator should not be too difficult, but I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
Mm.
so good luck with that. I'll be
Thank you.
following you online to see if it results in something workable.
Actually, I think just doing that manually, just making a cool like silhouette for a robot model or something, it's also very difficult. It's because if you look at all of the steps of making a robot model, robot character, um, probably the silhouette I find is the most difficult thing. Even though that's the least technical thing, it's just literally you can just have a piece of paper and a pen, and you can try to draw it. But all those other steps are technical, and you can just learn that. But that first creative step is very intimidating, I think, to try to come up with something really good. That's why I wanted to make that base mesh generator to kind of give you something more than just a blank page.
Mhm. I saw
Mm.
that there were tools for that some time ago. I've seen Alchemy, I think. It was like a very simple tool with some
Sounds
symmetries.
familiar. Yeah.
simple symmetry, and it was for drawing like shapes of a silhouette for
Yeah.
concept
Yeah.
art generally.
Yeah.
So you just drew a bunch of strokes, and it turned
Yeah.
out to be something like an ink splash, kind of like a Rorschach test ink
Mm.
splash that you can imagine this would be a character or a robot or whatever, and then you
Yeah.
could take it to 3D software. I think it's kind of a little bit like
I think I tried that one. Yeah.
Jama Jurabaev showed his way of working with grease pencil, that you just draw a bunch of
Yeah.
lines and then you turn it into 3D mesh and you have something to start with.
Yeah. He's another person who has a really unique workflow, right? It's interesting. He just, I've never seen anybody do it like that. And he just uses that to make concept art for Jurassic Park and Star Wars. It's amazing. Mm.
And he's using a lot of different tools and kind of combining them,
Yeah.
doing some stuff in this tool and some stuff in other tools, and he's just like doing this conglomerate at the end and very high quality
Mm.
output.
Yeah.
So are there? You mentioned After Effects, that you were using this in
Yeah.
your freelance job, and apart from After Effects and Blender, are there and ZBrush that you mentioned? Are there any other tools that you have tried, and what made you, like 3D tools, for example, and what made you
Yeah.
stick with Blender?
Um, well, I was pretty good with 3D Max. That's the first program I ever used for 3D. And I really enjoyed it, but it's very expensive. And it was more expensive, I think, even in the past. And I'm sure now they have a subscription service or something. But I think it was like almost 10,000 euro or something when I was uh, using that. And then I tried to learn Maya for a while. That didn't really catch on. And yeah, I honestly don't remember when I tried Blender for the first time, but I probably tried it several times before 2.79, where it was that bizarre horizontal interface. And that I could never figure out how to do anything with that. So it really wasn't until 2.79, I think, that I really took off with Blender. So not that long ago. But so yeah, to answer your question, 3D Max, my and actually before, that's something I'm trying to figure out. But before 3ds Max, I had some other software that I got from a disc. You know how there used to be 3D magazines with demo discs and so on. Um, I don't know if you know. I don't know how old you are.
If in
But-
fact I'm old enough to remember, programs loaded via cassette tape
okay, yeah, okay,
deck.
me too.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, my
But
first computer was
I literally.
Yeah, Spectrum, ZX Spectrum.
Oh, okay,
That was
yeah,
my first.
okay. Mine was a Commodore 64, but I literally don't remember the name of that software, unfortunately. Well, anyway,
Great. Like Blender is also old, really. If you take a dive into
I
like
guess so. Yeah.
prehistory of Blender, is also like dates to like deep 90s somewhere.
Oh yeah, yeah. Wow. Probably 20 years old or something, or 30. Or...
Yeah, I think that 1.0 was, yeah, something around half of the 90s. I'm not really sure, so I just don't want to like, mislead our audience anyway. Uh, so you mentioned the printed copies. Like you can like buy the ebook version of your uh, shortcut
Yeah.
books.
People ask me if there's a physical copy, but it would just be insanely expensive, first of all. But more importantly, it would just be out of date very quickly because I do update it. I try to update it at least 4 times a year. And it's really necessary with Blender because it develops so quickly. And if people buy a physical book after a year, there will be a lot of stuff in it that will not work anymore. So, but mainly also it would just be super expensive. 2,000 pages, full color.
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember that I was learning from a printed book some time ago, like a long time ago. I bought like
sure.
in my native speech, like a Bible of Blender or something like that. It was really good, and I still have it somewhere on my shelf, and it's quite nice to like look at this book like a time capsule because it's so outdated right now. But some of the core concepts still are relevant. But a lot of it it's like a history book.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
how 3D was like 10 years
I
ago.
I didn't know they had something like that for Blender. I did learn 3ds Max from a book as well. Yeah, from the library, also out of date, but it still worked for the most part.
Yeah, some more fundamental concepts might be a good idea for a book. Really, like I recently bought a
Yeah,
book about anatomy for artists, for example. If you want to like learn stuff that really doesn't change, like they
yeah,
might they might discover something new fascinating about the human body, but like a lot of it is already known and it won't change probably unless we
yeah, yeah.
cyber enhance it.
I bet you can make a book like that for 3D if you just make it software agnostic and just say like, well, there are vertices and there are edges and polygons and so on. And I mean, those things are the same regardless of what software you use. So I think you could explain a lot of those things without ever saying like this specific software you have to click on this. Probably it's possible to make a book like that.
Yeah, so maybe about the digital outlets of your content. Let me ask you about because you are offering a short form content which was popular on YouTube because of the shorts feature, and it
Mhm.
was all inspired by TikTok. And I wanted to ask you whether you ever tried running a TikTok account.
um yeah, actually I did, and I think I had at the most maybe 3 followers or something, and then I just gave up because it was just not working at all. And actually the YouTube channel kind of suffered a little bit from the shorts format because before that you could just watch my videos and just pause and rewind and comment underneath and stuff. And then they automatically changed them to shorts because they were usually less than 1 minute long. And now I just every day I get complaints from people. Why did you turn them into shorts? Now I cannot pause it, and it's like I didn't do anything. It's not my fault. And I did notice the sales of the book actually went down a little bit because people could not go to the description to find my links. But yeah, shorts, it's useful. Uh, nothing against shorts, but I don't think it really helped the channel. And it doesn't seem to work on something like TikTok because TikTok is more for entertainment, and Blender Secrets is a typical what they call search channel. Like people are not going to sit down on Saturday morning with a bag of cookies and watch some fun Blender Secrets videos. They just will search when they have a problem. They think, maybe I can find that on Blender Secrets, and then they will search for that problem, and then they solve it, and then they leave again. So it's a very different kind of channel that doesn't work on something like TikTok, I think. Unless maybe I make some very special content, like I'm doing a little dance with a Rococo smart suit or something. Who knows? Need to think
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. I also tried it for a short time some time ago, and I really found it super hard to even consume the content on. Maybe it's the age thing. Like young people are more
Probably.
excited about this, but I also think that
Uh,
it's a little bit even the entertainment form that it offers. It's kind of like I felt really like brainwashed after a few moments with it. It's like you used to see stuff like that in movies, like in Clockwork Orange. Like people are actually
something
brainwashed
like that.
this way, like offering so much visual stimuli at the very short time. This is,
Sure.
I don't think it's healthy, even as an entertainment form.
Not for a long time. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
uh, well, maybe finish your sentence and I'll ask the question.
Well, I do think shorts on YouTube can be entertaining. I do watch it sometimes, but to be honest, I have no experience watching TikTok. I just that's also my mistake. I tried to just upload what I already had there, and I never really explored what people post on TikTok. So maybe I need to do that. But it's also maybe not good to focus on too many channels. Um, like I've already got Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit. It's maybe enough. And I tried Mastodon. Uh, it's also I do still post new videos there, but nobody sees it.
Yeah,
So that's
it's
all.
a different beast. Like I also tried doing a little bit of Mastodon after this whole Twitter drama thing
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was happening, and I'm using it from time to time, but it seems like it's a totally different philosophy even because it doesn't
yeah,
have the feed as all the other ones that are driven by an algorithm. You just need to
mm,
really actively search for the content that you want to see. Like if you follow people and
yeah,
enable notifications, then you see people posting, but you have to do that
yeah,
actively. So it's more in the hands of the user, but it's also like less, you don't get found just by accident that much, I guess,
yeah. I
on
wonder
that
how that
platform.
works. I think it's important that you like or retweet, I guess it's called there, things. That probably helps, and it just that's how that platform works. Everybody has to kind of share each other's stuff. It's not suggested to you. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It seemed like a good idea, and I'm still on it, and I'm waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think it needs a critical mass to really start
Sure.
working the
Yeah.
way expected. But
Mm.
let's maybe imagine all of this digital world disappearing for a moment. Like let's imagine a long blackout. All the electricity is gone, and no AI, no Blender, no Twitter drama. So what does Jan van den Hemel resort to doing to keep sane?
Oh, I'll just start reading books. I love reading books. That's in the weekend. I actually usually take a break from the computer, or I try to anyway, and I'll just spend the whole morning reading in bed. So as long as I have some electricity for a light, then I'll be fine.
You can use
Or
just
candle.
candles
Yeah.
or sunlight.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, when preparing for the podcast, I discovered like we were trying to schedule the date, and I discovered that you are a morning bird person, kind of like
Yeah.
getting up
Absolutely.
very early,
Yeah.
and I find it relatable because I'm the same. Like a lot of my family is not like that. They tend to be the owl type person, going late
Mhm.
to bed, and I really like getting up early and
I
working
love
at
it.
these
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
And I also found that annoying that at least in my town, the world is not like built for morning birds. Not at all. At least I
Yeah.
try to find some place like a coffee shop or
Mm,
like a restaurant that opens up early. There are very little places like that. All the things are set up for afternoon, evenings. I don't know
yeah.
why.
I kind of like that, to be honest. The world is still sleeping when I get up. It's just very quiet. That's one of the reasons I get up early. It's so quiet that I can just concentrate very easily because I'm very easily distracted. Like if something happens in the street, I'll be distracted. A car drives by, I'll be distracted. But in the morning, there's just nothing. It's just quiet, so I can just work for hours and hours. Like my watch has to remind me sometimes, hey, you have to stand up and walk around a bit. It's not healthy to sit for so long, and I will just have no problem concentrating. But I guess it depends on where you live, right? I mean, in really big cities, you definitely can go out at 4 o'clock and get a cup of coffee. And just where do you live, by the way, DJ?
Yeah, I live in Gdańsk, by the
Okay,
Baltic Sea in
is it a
Poland.
big city?
It's like a quite big for at least Polish standards, but it's not a like super huge
Yeah,
city. It's like three cities connected because it's Gdańsk, Gdynia, and Sopot. So it's called Tri City
yeah.
here. It's like a little bit of a bigger agglomeration, but yeah, it's not a
Hmm.
huge city like New York or London. So
No, no, okay. Yeah, in New York, you can definitely get anything you want at 4 o'clock. So,
yeah, yeah, but probably maybe not quiet and focused. That's
no, no, I would
perhaps
prefer to have I would prefer it that stuff stops for a few hours at night. I prefer that. Yeah. Although I
yeah.
would like it if the library opened at 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes. No.
Yeah, that's great. So we're kind of like getting close to an hour, and I was thinking about making it. I even made a survey about how long
Yeah.
on Twitter how long people are listening to a podcast, and it turned out that the hour mark is kind of like digestible for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I tend to have
Understandable.
the episodes longer, Like I used to run the CG Talks podcast, and it was very often longer. Then we tried cutting it into parts. Yeah, but I'm thinking that this hour mark is quite good,
Yeah, I
uh,
think so.
especially for modern people that are trained on on TikTok and not have a long focus span.
Mm.
And maybe I could just to end this up, I could like advise them to yeah, follow you online, or watch your videos and your book whenever they need some tips for Blender. If they want something, more focused, just buy a good book and read, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah, just they can follow me on YouTube. I think that's the best place because on YouTube I only post new stuff. So if they don't want to get confused by all the old reposts, like on Twitter, I repost a lot of things. So then they should just stick to YouTube, and it's also easier to search. If you have some problem, you can search on the YouTube channel for that, and it's a bit easier, I think.
Yeah, is there maybe is there anything more that you would like to speak on the podcast, or I have like one final question.
Oh, I
Um,
don't know. You can ask me the question.
yeah, I would like to just know what are your kind of future plans on the channel. Is it just like going with the regular schedule of posting and doing the same thing, or are anything else that you're planning for this year, for example, that's interesting for your channel's viewers?
I don't know if I should talk about it, but I'm working on a video course, but I'm already working on it for I think at least a year and a half. Of course, it's hard service robots stuff. Actually, it's kind of concept arts sculpting in Blender specifically, and I actually already wanted to release that last year, but it turns out I just have to still learn a lot of stuff before I can really finish that. And that's something that they can look forward to. And for the rest, yeah, I'll try to keep posting the 1 minute videos. To be honest, I think there are still so many topics that I need to touch on. So I'm trying to learn geometry nodes, for example. Hopefully, I can. I don't know if that's even possible, but I'll try to put that in 1 minute videos somehow
If you find a
someday.
clever way to put that into chunks,
Yeah,
I guess you could like the whole idea of nodes is like
thank you.
compartmentalizing the actions into small boxes and connecting
Yeah,
them together.
yeah,
So
yeah.
your videos are kind of like nodes. You have to connect them in your brain. All the
Yeah,
tips.
I guess so. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so that's exciting. Like the course thing is kind of like using these small tools and building something bigger. And it's, as you
Yeah,
said,
it's
it's
it's it's difficult. I'm not used to it because my attention span tends to only have to be for like 1 minute videos. Like there's the attention span of the viewer, but there's also the attention span of the creator. And when you're working on a course, you have to keep so many separate elements in your brain. It's just it's difficult, really, very difficult. I'm so impressed by people like Zach from CG Boost who can just do that. I'm sure it's not easy, but they make it seem kind of easy. And I had to spend a lot of time just learning how to talk on a microphone and model at the same time, like demonstrate something and record, which is how he does that. I just I had to train myself for that because I just normally write the voiceover text, then I record the voiceover text, and I literally say every sentence like 10 times before I think it's good enough. And it's just a very different way of working. So I had to make a switch and train myself for a different kind of content creation.
yeah. So that seems like a new challenge and
Yeah,
exciting thing ahead. So if anyone wants to learn Blender tips or Blender concept art in the future in your course, I highly recommend following your channel. It's very useful. And if you have
thanks.
anything that you want to use for your Blender magic, and Blender secrets are, you know is the place to go. So
Thank
thanks
you.
again, Jan, for taking the time to record this
Thank
show.
you. Thanks for having me. Uh,
Um,
Maybe we'll see each other at Beacon this this
Oh
year,
yeah,
right? Are you going?
actually that was one thing that I wanted to ask and kind of forgot. So let's
Okay.
end on this more community note about Blender conference. Like, have you been to the last Blender
Yeah,
conference?
yeah, I was there. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so
was fun.
we kind of must have crossed paths, but
Yeah,
didn't.
we crossed each other on the staircase.
I was talking about this with some people because this was my first conference, in fact,
Me too.
and some people said that before pandemic, when it was in a different venue, it was smaller and it had like more.
Right.
You were able to meet everyone actually, and it was like
Okay.
a more small, had a smaller vibe. But
Mm.
the last one also had a nice feeling to it. But it was big enough just to cross paths but not meet.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping to be this year. Not sure yet if I will be able to, but yeah, really hoping to. But after this first thing, when you go to this conference, you really want to get back because it's such a cool event.
Yeah, it was surprisingly fun. I didn't really know what to expect, and yeah, it was just fun to meet all those people that I've talked to online, and see them in real life. I met all the CG Boost people, but I didn't meet you somehow. It's very strange.
Yeah,
We
because
just missed each other.
I wasn't yet working for Zbrush
Yeah.
at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also met the CG Boost people there, and also like a lot of people that I knew from like some kind of online meetings, like the podcast conversations that I had, but also a lot
Mm.
of people that I wasn't really aware that they were using Blender. There's so many new people around there, and it was really cool to see, people interested in so many different areas of Blender and really
Yeah, yeah,
creative ways of using it.
yeah. Like fashion, for example, something
Oh
I'd
yeah,
never thought about before.
fashion
Yeah.
is something that also kind of like resonates with me privately because my wife is sewing, and
Okay.
actually the very thing that I'm wearing here
Oh, cool.
is her kind of new product, and it's also using some of my hand drawn art on a print. So
Oh, nice.
it's
Yeah.
she's preparing to launch it as a product actually, and I'm always thinking about how to use Blender somehow in this process. And
Yeah, yeah.
recently, I've discovered this sewing patterns, UV to sewing patterns in Blender, the add-on, and I think that you've also made a video about this.
Seems to suing or something it's called.
All right, so a little bit of technical issues and web connection work going wonky, but we're back here. So we were talking about the Blender conference and fashion things that we discovered, uh, and I'm trying to implement Blender into something that I like. Me and my wife are working on the fashion design thing. Like, I'm always thinking about using Blender in other places than just my regular work.
Yeah. Did you use it because you said you were using it for architectural visualization? Do you use it like to do the decoration of your apartment or something, or to decide where to put stuff?
Yeah, exactly. That's also something that I'm using it. Like, usually, it's not at the super pro level. Like, I'm trying to
Mm.
make it simple and just block things out. But Blender
Right.
is very useful for that. It's easy to kind of at least get a feeling of the space. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Usually,
have designed some simple shelves in Blender before, just so that I knew what how big the wood was that I had to buy and stuff like that. That's
yeah,
kind of
exactly.
convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, usually I don't do like a super polished ArcVis project for my own needs because there's
Uh,
no time for it and there's no need really for that.
mm,
Actually, it's I just need to have a vision in my brain, and maybe it sometimes help to get the feeling of the space. But yeah,
yeah. That's
otherwise it's
something I think that's really missing. If I may still ramble on a little bit, a really serious professional architectural visualization course for Blender. I think that's something that's either I just haven't found it or it just really doesn't exist. Because I did one very big, much too big for me project for a client once, architectural visualization. I spent several months on it. And it was really a nightmare because I just couldn't get good renders and I couldn't get good tutorials or information about how to make it better.
I think that one YouTube channel and the guy behind the Chocofor web store with
Sugar
models.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, Lex Sokolowski, and he's kind of like specializing in ArcViz a little bit, and I think he made a course about this some time ago,
Oh,
and it's like a full-blown interior visualization course
okay. And
in
does it
Blender.
use cycles or Eevee or
Cycles.
Unreal? Okay.
I guess cycles,
Wow.
but I've seen people using different things for especially for interiors. That like Corona render engine was very popular, and
Yeah.
it was popular possible to use it in Blender to some extent, but not the latest versions. And like it
Right.
was quite a
Yeah.
quite a quirky
Mm.
approach. But there are some people like using it for really high quality renderings with Octane, and I
Yeah.
think it's quite a popular setup.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah. One of my clients was also an architectural visualization company, and they commissioned me to make hundreds of furnitures from an existing catalog. That was kind of a fun job, actually. Just this catalog of a real furniture and design company, and I just had to make everything in Blender. It was a fun job. I became faster at modeling doing that because I way underpriced myself, a really beginner mistake, and I was doing them for like €10 per model or something stupid like that. So I had to force myself to become really quick. Um,
Yeah, that's a perfect place for placing some automation. Also, at least cutting corners in some
yeah,
areas
yeah, yeah,
in that.
absolutely.
Yeah, but all that experience distilled is put into Blender Secrets. So
Yes.
anyone of you listening right now, just go online, and if you want to learn Blender to be better, faster, more efficient in Blender, then every secret that you might think of is probably already on the channel or will be in the future.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
so
will be.
thanks again, and I hope to see you online soon, or maybe on the Blender conference, hopefully this year.
Yeah, that would be great. See you then, or see you
Thank,
online on CG Boost Slack maybe. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks a lot, DJ. Bye.
Bye.